Hey, and welcome back to this new video in a new leading edge, which is a series of videos that I'm making to present my vision for what I see as a new leading edge arising now in society, in humanity. So my name is Eivind Schellum. I am the founder of a pretty intense 3-month initiation for men called Reclaim Your Inner Throne. So my angle is men's work, and now I'm excited to bring that work further to a more, wide-reaching cultural frame that includes women, men, conservatives, liberals, and this new evolutionary wave that I believe that we're seeing right now. So these videos, it's clear to me, I'm making them essentially as a bit of a research experiment, because in Reclaim Your Inner Throne now we're planning this new home study program called A New Leading Edge, which is designed to be a meeting of polarities. There is such an extreme polarization in the world right now where like conservatives, liberals, feminists, men's rights activists, east, west, up, down, cats, dogs, they're just go, 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 rah, 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 meow, meow, rah, 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 rah. And it's getting really intense. And what I see is that in order to really evolve to the next stage, is that this side needs to recognize the parts of them in that side, which may be, for instance, for liberals, it may be the forgotten priority in their life and the life of liberals for structure and discipline and responsibility. Whereas for a conservative, it might be integrating sensitivity and emotional, intimacy and that kind of thing. Obviously painting with very broad strokes here, but this essentially is the story of humanity right now, as far as I can tell, is that we're trying in a way to become whole, and we're being faced with all of those parts of us that we have put into exile, and we're going to war against those, thinking that is the enemy, forgetting that is actually a part of us that we are, as of yet, not willing to integrate. And it's a pretty profound perspective when you go all the way with it. Quite a Jungian frame that I'm coming from, but also, as you've probably been able to see from previous videos, also bringing in integral frameworks, human evolutionary models, that kind of thing. So in the last video, I presented the 6 first stages of a model called spiral dynamics. And if you haven't watched that, go back and watch it now. I'm going to assume that you've got at least the foundations integrated in your system from having watched that. And so my intention now was originally to bring in the next stages of what we call second tier, but I've changed my mind. I feel like I need to spend some more time on first tier first. So to briefly summarize the 6 stages we're talking about, it's beige, it's about survival, it's about very basic survival function, human function, like eat and fuck and kill and run and fight and flight and that kind of thing. And then we evolve into tribes where there's more culture happening. There's a very symbiotic relationship between human beings and nature. And the tribe is this fairly egalitarian culture where there's human sacrifice, there's all kinds of rituals, and so on and so forth. Then there's red. There's the emergence out of the sort of the merged, undifferentiated, sort of matriarchal stages that precede it. So there's an eros rising through the masculine towards autonomy, through like claiming what I want, desire, power, territory. It's a very primal, raw kind of energy that comes in red. And then blue comes in a way to limit and build structure and law and boundaries around red, to limit its capacity for chaos. So it's when religion comes, and when law and order, it's when we start forming into nation states, and so on and so forth. Religions going to war against each other, nations going to war against each other, and so on. And then out of that paradigm of a religious, ethnocentric paradigm moves orange, again with a masculine eros rising towards mastery, excellence, towards science, rationality, and capitalism comes in. All kinds of scientific evolution comes in. We get the Industrial Revolution, and everything in culture that we associate with, I have my Kindle here, I have my big microphone, and I have my phones and whatever. It comes from a discovery that was made on this orange. And then where we ended last time was on green, where humans and culture realizes the limitations of these preceding masculine patriarchal paradigms. And now there's a return to more sensitivity, to vulnerability. Return is a bit of a misnomer, because it's actually part of the illusion that's playing out in green that we're going to look at today. It's this idea, looking back at purple, which is this undifferentiated, feminine, egalitarian, but also human sacrifice, tribal war, that kind of thing. It's that sort of like golden age. It's an idea that arises with postmodernism, that everything that this so-called patriarchy has put into place has been destructive, has created violence and oppression, and women have suffered. Always the women on green. There's no sensitivity for the suffering of men in this green meme, and so the desire then is to deconstruct all of the hierarchies, the oppressive models, the systems of governance, the socio-economic models that have enforced this oppressive. The idea is that this has been this very oppressive, evil sort of paradigm for so long, and returning to the beauty, the innocence, the feminine, matriarchal, golden age that precedes. But what green doesn't realize is that back when purple was the cultural leading edge, human autonomy had not been discovered. And to the extent that human autonomy was expressed, people would be sent into exile. And this is not something that I'm just making up. I've been talking to indigenous elders, like an Aboriginal elder, and I asked him what happens if a person who's born into a role in the tribe doesn't want to live in that role. Maybe he's not, in his caste or whatever they call it, Then, first of all, it's generally not a problem because people are so, conforming to the culture. But the minute someone would actually go to war against that paradigm in their own tribe, they would be sent into exile. So essentially, all of these following red, blue, and orange have been stages of evolution that have been responsible for not only the emergence of human autonomy, but then regulating the destructive capacity of human autonomy with blue, and then also giving human autonomy the drive to excel, to reach higher goals and vistas, and open up new frontiers of knowledge and information. That's orange, right? So green doesn't realize that when we come with postmodernism and we want to tear all of that down, if we do that without actually having a new and better solution, what we're essentially doing is that we are initiating a psychic field in humanity that has the ultimate goal of destroying civilization. I want you to take that in, because it's kind of a big deal. When the green meme doesn't realize that that is the logical consequence of their pursuit, the destruction of everything that sort of masculine civilization brought, without offering a viable alternative, which postmodernism never does. They don't have new solutions. All they do is that they break apart the existing ones. The idea, the desire, is the return to a golden age. And this is prevalent in feminism and postmodernism, the idea of a golden age prior to masculine destruction, but also civilization. So this is a problem. And now let's look at the other forces as well that are operating in culture now, that are also aimed for the end of the world as we know it, consciously or not. So on the blue level, on the ethnocentric, religious, law and order level, it has become a very prevalent desire to almost pray for the end of the world, for rapture. Like, it's a surprisingly common desire among religious conservatives to have the end of the world. Because when the end of the world comes, there is an idea that I should be taken to heaven, because I'm such a law-abiding, noble, pious, wonderful human being, as opposed to all of the other degenerate, hedonistic, science-oriented, liberals, whatever. So if the end of the world comes, I will go to heaven. I mean, this is an incredibly prevalent idea in world religion. So in the blue stage of development, that is a strong move towards the end of the world. It's an apocalyptic yearning. And actually, the apocalypse and the end of the world are different psychological, archetypal fields, entities. But that is a debate for another day. And then on orange, it's more of an unconscious thing, because the drive for excellence, for profit, for evolution has by now become so disconnected from the nature that we sort of left when we were connected to nature on purple. We left it with red, and then blue came, and then now orange. We have completely let go of our connection to nature by now. Most people on orange have very little respect for the balance of the world, unless it's in the context of increased success and profit and mastery. which obviously in a more holistic understanding of the bottom line for a corporation, for instance, a smart person would understand that if you strip mine everything, if you empty the ocean of oil and you're a petroleum company, then I mean there's nowhere to get money from anymore given the current business model. So if you're a smart person on Orange, you understand that you need to change from a petroleum-based paradigm to more of a solar-based paradigm, more of a renewable energy paradigm. But there's a surprising amount of ignorance and stupidity on the stage of development that is governed supposedly by reason and science. So what's happening here in Orange is that there is an unconscious move towards the end of the world, because the end of the world happens when the ecosystem collapses and when there's no capacity for food production anymore, or we have run out of resources so that the techno-economical system that we live in, that civilization lives under, doesn't anymore have the material and the resources required to keep sustaining it. So yeah, obviously red is, when left unchecked, it's a force of chaos. So it's a dangerous force. Blue wants rapture, the end of the world. Orange is destroying the world through lack of sensitivity to ecosystems, through resources, and so on and so forth. And green, thinking that they're different and are so beautiful and sensitive and vulnerable, are also aiming for the end of the world by returning to a pre-industrial, pre-masculinity, golden age mythos, which is entirely unlike the fantasies that they fabricate. So this is the madness of the first tier paradigm, where essentially every stage is fundamentalistic and every stage has a more or less conscious drive for the apocalypse. Every stage, in some way or another, perhaps apart from beige and purple. I'm going to have to think some more about that, but the following 4 stages have very strong apocalyptic tendencies. So there's a desire for the apocalypse, and then what we need to understand is, actually returning to my prior point, is that the apocalypse is actually an archetypal configuration in the unconscious of humanity that is wanting not the end of the world ultimately, but is wanting to reveal what's been hidden. Because that's literally what it means. It means revelation of what's been hidden. So now, as all of these forces are operating with apocalyptic energies at the same time, it's no wonder that we are in a time of great revelation. And we need to understand now that all of these first tier paradigms, left unchecked, would unconsciously bring about the apocalypse. And when you unconsciously bring about the apocalypse, it will likely mean a tremendous disaster. But if you bring around the apocalypse consciously, it becomes the means at which we can die to our current sense of self and be reborn to a higher sense of self, to a more mature, more fully integrated sense of self, which is exactly what this new leading edge I'm talking about is about, what the second tier and the spiral dynamics is about. It's realizing that the fundamentalism of all these prior stages of development is essentially mad, and that it doesn't reflect reality at all, because we all have all of these perspectives in our awareness, because this is how we grew up. We grew up through these perspectives. And now we need to realize that we need to reclaim them, because otherwise we will keep perpetuating the miserable tradition of exiling the parts of us that we don't like, labeling them as enemy, and then going to war against them. And even the so-called tolerant, sensitive, lovely people on green are doing this. And it's getting really nasty in our culture right now. And that's why that paradigm is now failing as a leading edge. And we now need a new solution.
Tune in next time when I intend to speak more about this new solution and the higher stages of human development. Welcome back then. Bye.